Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ron Hoenig to officially open this evening's facility here at Mascot.
Mr. Harry Triggerboff, AO, representatives of Meriton, my parliamentary colleague Matt Thistlethwaite, the member for Kingsford Smith, councillors from Botany Bay City Council, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be invited here to open this magnificent development. I was no part of the assessment or the consent for this application, but it was developed in accordance with a development control plan that I had written. And it was the development control plan that required Meriton to build the world's largest car park. Many years ago, as Mayor, Mr. Triggerboff came to see me. He had acquired a site in Gardeners Road. Now, the only reason I knew he had acquired it was that I'd seen it in the Australian Financial Review. And I wondered how long it would take before I got a request for Mr. Triggerboff to come and see me. It was a number of years ago, and he did ultimately come and see me. And the third thing he said was that your development control plan is not very good. And I said, really, Mr. Triggerboff, I wrote it. But I said, if you comply with it, you'll get a quick approval. Meriton, being what it then was, tried every trick in the book not to comply, not to build the underground car park and find every other excuse, but ultimately they did. And when I inspected the development after it was completed, it was indeed very impressive, but not as impressive as what you see before you today. If you want investment, if you want a quality of life, if you want jobs, if you want housing, you have to facilitate investment. And if you want to facilitate investment, you don't have to do what the developers tell you to do. You need to tell the developers as government what you want them to do, and if they comply, then give them the quick approvals that they in fact are entitled to. They're the ones that take the risk. The other observation I want to make is this, and that is that being a developer often causes people to think not highly of them. They're only a developer. This is being done for developers. But the reality of the situation is this: where there is poor development, it is actually the fault of the regulators and the fault of government. It is the fault of the law. It is the fault of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. It is the fault of those idiots that have presided in the Department of Planning for generations. And it is the fault of town planners or councillors who haven't provided certainty to people investing huge amounts of money of which our economy is dependent. And the solution is not like my good friend Rob Stokes thinks it is, by handing over to bureaucrats a decision-making process. If you are a government and a Minister for Planning, then you are elected to set out the vision of matters of state and regional significance, and you must not duck the question because the media might criticise you. You must grasp the nettle and set the direction and determination. I spoke to the Minister for Planning only yesterday when he came for a site inspection only about a kilometre down the road, looking at the West Connects. And those of you who struggled to get here in the traffic this afternoon, could you just imagine the New South Wales government adding another 50,000 vehicles into the congestion that you faced in getting here? But I pointed out to Mr. Stokes that just a kilometre up the road is really a shining example of what sort of development should be undertaken in transport routes next to railway stations. And I pointed out to him this pretty simple fact. Rather than building dock boxes under SEP 65, if you can build apartments that provide for quality residential living for families, you restrict immediately the demand that people have for the quarter-acre block, and you immediately address the shortages of land that currently exist or not being released. If you want to address affordable housing, then you have to supply the market, and you have to reduce the cost of development. Because if you don't, then the housing bubble will continue to grow. So I say to you, Mr. Triguboff, congratulations on your foresight. I was lucky enough to be taken by representatives of Meriton, including the builders, through this development last week. I am absolutely staggered at the close attention to detail in all the finishes, in the design, in the location of facilities and amenities. And if you, when the formal part is finished, if you go and look behind me, there's an indoor 30-metre swimming pool and gymnasium, which in itself is somewhat staggering. So I say, Mr. Triguboff, I'm delighted you're successful, because it is important that you lead the market. You and your company should be extremely proud of what we see here today. And before I finish, I just want to say this. If you doubt the architectural merit of what you see, just walk outside and look up and look around you, and it speaks for itself. Congratulations, Mr. Triguboff. Congratulations, Meriton. Congratulations for your vision and foresight. It's with great honour and privilege that I declare Mascot Central officially open.